and this is the Nonprofit Corner podcast with your host, Dr. Victoria Boyd. And welcome to another edition of the Nonprofit Corner podcast. And this is your host, Dr. Victoria Boyd. I'm so excited about our guest today. It's Matt Hugg, and he is the founder of Nonprofit.Courses. There's over 9,000 different courses available for staff, board members, nonprofit leaders. You really want to hear about this. So we'll be right back in just a moment with our special guest, Matt Hugg. And welcome back to the Nonprofit Corner podcast with your host, Dr. Victoria Boyd. And as I said, my special guest today is Matt Hugg. Oh my God, he is a wealth of information. But before we go on, because I hate reading bios, I just like to ask my guest, what path, what led you into this whole nonprofit training world? Because that's not the path that most people go down. But what got you there?
Well, I came in the traditional way. I fell into it.
Tumble over.
Right. Basically, my undergraduate degree is a combination of geology, biology, and anthropology. And so, of course, that naturally fits into nonprofits, right? Of course not. Okay. And so I got out of school. I was thinking I might be a paleontologist, and I started a graduate program in paleontology. And honestly, things weren't looking good broadly in the economy. This was at a time when not only were things kind of sloping downward, but they were, if you were a geologist, I mean, buddies of mine got hired in an instant, like the year before, and now they were competing against me in the market. It just didn't look good. And so I was in Boy Scouts for all my life, and they had just opened up this new thing called the Boy Scout store, which at the time, department stores used to carry the equipment and all that. They stopped doing it. Boy Scouts opened up their own supply stuff. And the guy who was the manager kind of became a bit of a mentor and said, you ought to do something that's called becoming a district executive. And that was kind of the territory manager for the Boy Scouts in a particular area. Ended up doing that in Cape May County, New Jersey, and liked it. And then eventually went on to higher education fundraising and got a master's degree in fundraising, and then my own consulting and things from there. So
you sound. My career was 28 years teaching dance.
Yeah, well, there you go. Right. Now
here I am now. So
and I think dance is a metaphor for fundraising.
Well, a lot of the processes and strategies that I used in choreography is the same type of stuff that I use without, development, management, systems, operations,
and just how I feel about like anthropology, that part of my degree is I use that all through my nonprofit life, because you're dealing with different cultures and different kinds of people, and you're working with folks that aren't like you. It really pays off. And plus I talk about things like eroding donor bases, so I can get some geology terms in there.
Hey, and I did a big training called Super Donor Framework just a few weeks ago, and it's coming again the beginning of November, which
there you go.
Really talking about retention of those donors. I mean, we just sort of fall into these careers. I don't wake up one morning and say, gonna be this nonprofit person. Well, maybe
and I don't know any TV shows. Well, I have seen in a couple of instances where fundraisers were portrayed on TV shows, but there's no
there's no
Law and Order nonprofit edition or anything, nothing like that going on.
Absolutely. So in my intro, I talked about the nonprofit courses that you founded, where you have 9,000 courses or different offerings. Tell us a little bit more about that, because education and training, that's my passion. That's my bailiwick. And your platform basically is amazing.
Well, thank you.
So just tell us more about the nonprofit, and it's nonprofit.courses, right?
Yeah, nonprofit.courses. .courses is a new top-level domain, well, relatively new now. The .com and .org, same kind of thing. And so kind of gave that thumbnail of my career, right? And so in the early 2000s, I decided not to get a paycheck anymore. Kind of a weird decision, but go on my own and do consulting. And since I had this master's degree, and honestly, I've always found teaching to be fun. I used to do it in high school with environmental ed. I've done it other times, right? And so I networked into doing a teaching gig first at a community college. And it's almost like, it's like baseball going through the minor leagues, right?
Yeah.
And then somebody locally here was moving away. And she had taught a course on, they called it fundraising. It was actually grant proposal writing at a local graduate program. And the fellow who I happen to know because we were in the same networking group was head of the nonprofit management program at the school.
Okay.
And he heard I had this degree and said, well, do you want to try doing this? And I said, well, yeah. And so I started teaching there and then several other graduate programs. Well, while I'm doing this, I have to say at this time, YouTube was kind of a new thing and people were starting to make videos. And I decided, I wonder if my students would like videos, particularly of people that I happen to know who made these videos and a different voice from mine. And this wasn't, and the course was not like an every Thursday night kind of thing. We would do weekend intensives and then 10 weeks online, that kind of thing. But I started doing making course lists or playlists and assigning readings on a subject like direct mail or plan giving or something. And the videos got all sorts of feedback, and it wasn't videos of me. This was videos of other people. And the papers not so much. So okay, maybe we're on to something. Well, eventually, I was doing another project for something, looking for a new top-level domain. I'd made some videos for myself to put up, and discovered .courses was open, nonprofit wasn't taken, and I said, okay. So I put my own stuff up there, and okay. And I said, well, this is too good a URL just to keep for mine. Let's see who else wants to be part of it. And so I started calling folks and connecting into, and I connect out to people's videos. I don't bring them in the site. Kind of keeps the load down on the website, but also makes it a win-win for the content experts. Like some of your stuff on there. And so when somebody looks at that, they either go to their website or to their YouTube channel. The whole idea is I want to facilitate people getting education. And there are two things that I work with here. One is what I call nonprofit focused. So volunteer management, certain kinds of accounting, fundraising, right, that kind of stuff. And then stuff I call nonprofit helpful. So HR, DEI, how to make presentations, things that nonprofits need, but isn't specific to nonprofits, right?
Yes. Yep, absolutely.
And I want anybody in a nonprofit to go to my website and find that stuff too. And a course is broadly defined, anything from less than 5 minutes to over 5 hours. I have some academic courses on there. For the most part, it's all free. I got about 20% of them that are paid, coming from providers, and that's really good stuff. And then and so it's open access. There's no membership. You just click through and go do nonprofit.courses, find what you need and watch it or listen to it or whatever.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was I guess it's been a few years now. It seems.
And we're having fun. Time's been flying.
Yeah. and I saw, because you mentioned YouTube, that's where my playlist is. Before I started Nonprofit Corner podcast, I have a whole playlist on the TPF network called the Nonprofit Corner. So I just picked up on that, and there's tons. In fact, I just got a star or whatever YouTube awards for uploading 150 videos. I'm like, oh,
congratulations.
Okay. Well, all righty then. yes, but that's the way of the future. And I did have a brick and mortar training center here
Yeah, I
in,
remember.
yeah,
Yeah,
but COVID, I was already talking about and was doing virtual training and things that just sort of sealed the deal for me, and said that's the way I need to go at this point from moving forward. And I made
yeah.
it the model that I work for.
Well, I mean, I love live teaching. It's a lot of fun, but and live teaching is different than online teaching.
Oh,
You can't
absolutely.
just port the thing one over to the other. And
Right.
there's some similarities, but it's different techniques, different ways. In fact, very interesting. One of the schools I was teaching at Juniata College, my own school, alma mater, had a graduate program for a bit in nonprofit management, and they gave some training. And one of the things that big takeaway was you have to be demonstratively more emotional in online teaching.
Absolutely. Yes.
So put in the emoticons, put in, ha ha, all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff, right? Because people, in text, they're not hearing your intonation that you
Yes.
can get
Right.
when you're live.
And segue here, shameless plug. I wrote the
Yeah,
book Webinar Secrets during COVID.
that's right. Yes, I
Yes,
remember.
because
Yeah,
during, I was sitting there watching other folks' webinars thinking, well, I can't go anywhere, so I might as well.
yeah.
Professional development. I
Hmm.
got so bored, and there were so many bad, I'll say it,
Yeah.
bad webinars. Being an educator, person who has developed curriculum and things like that, I was like, let me just write a guide for them on what they should and should not do.
Makes total sense. Well, and it's interesting. I find that the you don't have to be high production value to do a good webinar,
No,
right?
no,
Because people really appreciate the kind of the genuineness of it. But on the other hand, you got to be better than bad.
yeah, you
I
have to
mean,
be
there's
content driven. I saw so many
yeah,
webinars where the first 20 minutes they talked about themselves. I'm
yeah,
like,
exactly.
where
Which we don't which we don't want to do here because this isn't about me. This is about the folks who are out there. So
that's right. That's right. So, okay, look, we're going to get into your topic in a moment, but
yeah.
first, you are also a part of the giveaway that we have
Oh,
a bunch
right.
of experts, national experts that are,
Yeah.
I mean, famous in their area. So
Yeah.
just give us a little tidbit of what your giveaway is going to be.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I love this concept. I didn't know about it. Of course, I seemed like I'm the last person who didn't know about it. But when everybody gets together and in a certain niche, and ours, being nonprofit work, and gets freebies together, meaningful freebies, and that's really the important part. This isn't just toss off stuff. This is like real stuff, and puts it together, and we all promote it among each other's lists and all that, and get people to take advantage of it. So mine, I've had some fun. See, that's the other thing too. I really like one of the things I've liked about working in the nonprofit sector is there can be a lot of fun in it. And I've also found that it even gets more fun when you can kind of poke fun at yourself or at the sector itself. And so over time, I have been collecting collecting, as in bookmarking and cataloging videos that are just fun and they're targeted toward nonprofits. And so, like one of them is, what if people bought pizza like a foundation approaches, bought pizza at a restaurant like a foundation approaches a nonprofit, right? Another one is stuff, not well, stuff. I will not do that word. That nonprofit people say. There's a couple of, I mean, all sorts of things there that are out in the world, right? These are some of them are specifically made for nonprofits. Some of them are like segments you find on YouTube of TV show
Yeah,
clips, right?
yeah.
That segments that way. And so I'm giving people 30 of these that I found that you will just laugh about. And
And
I hope,
sometimes we just need that, you know?
yeah, it's just a de-stress thing.
Yeah, especially, I
You're,
mean, because the turnover rate of staff in nonprofits,
oh,
it's basically based on stress and
yeah, Well, stress and people not, I mean, okay, so I have this little little thing I stand, soapbox I stand on once in a while that, I come from a fundraising background, and yet most people who are fundraisers are not managed by other fundraisers,
Yeah.
unless you're in a university setting or a hospital or something where there's like a big staff. And the people who manage them usually don't want to do fundraising. And so I've always thought we need to know, you got a CFRE, right? So certified fundraising executive. I think we need a CFR, certified fundraising executive manager, somebody who knows, they didn't even have to be a fundraiser, but they understand enough about fundraising that they understand how to manage people in that process.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, because you get folks who hire people who, okay, well, you've been here a week. Where's all the money?
Yeah, and a lot of times if they're just breathing, oh, you're willing to do it and you're breathing, you're
Yeah,
hired. Yeah, so
exactly.
it's just the nature of nonprofit sector, unfortunately.
Exactly.
Thank you. I mean, so that giveaway right now, I think the name is Effective Leaders Nonprofit Toolkit.
Right.
It runs November 6th through the 26th, and just keep watching. I know I'll be doing e-blast. I'm sure you'll be doing blast. I'll have another podcast specifically about the giveaway right before it goes up, and we're going to make sure people get this information. We're going to take a quick break, and we will be right back. Most nonprofits are losing their $10,000 per month grant because they just don't understand what key elements are required for success. Come to Google Ad Grant training every second Wednesday every other month for the training you need to implement your Google Ad Grant. Okay, we are back with the Nonprofit Corner podcast. I know I like to smile and laugh. I'm glad you're going to be giving away humor. Okay.
Well, let's hope people think it's humorous. And not everything made the cut.
We're going to get into a little serious conversation now.
For sure.
And it's something I totally believe in because I have been promoting professional development for years. I taught nonprofit development and management at UNLV also. But you made a statement in some of the material you gave me. A solid professional development plan is a win-win-win.
Yep.
First, let's define what development plan you're talking about, because our last guest, Linda Lizakowski, talked about a development plan, and it was strictly fundraising.
But right. So the development has a lot of different meanings depending on the context. And for this conversation, we're talking about building up yourself in the skills and education you need to carry out your job.
Absolutely.
So we're talking about learning. If you're in fundraising, learning, or if you're not in fundraising, learning about fundraising. If you're in, marketing, doing more of that, or management, whatever, to move, not only just move your career forward, right? Because it's about you, it's about giving yourself a win, but then your employer the win, and then really the clients you are all serving, whether you call them clients, patients, students, whatever that is, your mission recipients, they get the big win. That's what you're in nonprofit for, and they're the folks who really benefit from your professional development.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I mentioned it once again in this super donor training about creating that philanthropic culture where you teach the other staff, whether you think they need to know it or not, they need to understand what is this thing called fundraising? Why are you doing certain things? Just so if they come across an individual donor, at least the whole organization is on the same page, has the same language, and is conveying the same narrative or message. So that professional development actually supports that too, in terms of growing your staff, because you even put down their staff, volunteers, board members in what you wrote. Okay, you also mentioned professional is essential, not an extra.
Right, exactly. And for a lot of reasons. First of all, it keeps the risk to the organization down.
Okay.
I mean, it's a little bit of extreme example, right? But like if you're a surgeon and you're not up to date on the latest techniques of whatever you're doing, right? Somebody could come in and something goes wrong. They say, well, why weren't you doing the right thing here? And it could happen in a lot of ways. Maybe you don't think that marketing is it's not the level of surgery, but you're always putting marketing or fundraising or whatever you do in a nonprofit organization, but you're always putting your organization at risk if you are not up to date on things. Plus, of course, there's the benefit, right, of if new techniques, new ideas come up, you want to be up to date on those as well. Take a step back here, with the solid foundation of the basics in whatever you're doing. I mean, for example, I like, fundraising background, right? And something new comes up, peer-to-peer fundraising. It's not new as it used to be, but it's relatively new. And yet I will tell anybody, right? And if you don't have the basics of the profession, you don't necessarily know this, that it is another technique, but the fundamentals are the same. You have to prepare for it, right? It goes through all this fundraising cycle like anything else, but it's just the methodology of communication is different, and how the transaction occurs. So it's not, it takes kind of the magic out of it, right? but knowing that fundamental means that you can take that new technique that you learn and do it even better.
Absolutely. And I often hear many people within any organization start talking about brain fog.
That's all right.
That they don't need to look at other departments and things like that. That too many of them work in silos. I guess that's what I'm trying.
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure. Right. And that's one of the things, in fact, somewhere along the way, and I wish I could cite where, but I remember reading years ago that some of the newest ideas, the best ideas of any discipline, come from the newest people in it.
Yep.
Because they're bringing experiences from other directions. They're getting a fresh look at what's going on.
Yeah.
And it really, they also haven't gotten into the routine of
how do you feel about this statement? We've always done it this way.
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure. Right.
That's like the statement of death. I mean,
it's good news and bad news. I mean, yeah, you're right. It certainly stymies innovation, and it puts up blockades when there might be actually a good idea. But on the other hand, if you look at Michael Gerber, if our audience has not read Michael Gerber's work, I would suggest it, particularly the core book called the eMyth Revisited. And the eMyth is really, he talks about, and E for entrepreneur, he talks about why, one of the things he talks about is why McDonald's hamburgers taste the same in Osaka like they do in Omaha. It's because they have processes in place that make all this happen, and the process becomes your brand.
Right.
And so so if you've always done it this way, well, if it's a good process, it's always worked and it's logical and it's documented, and that's something that Gerber talks about, and you're always examining the process to see if it can be improved, and then document
measure it. Yep.
And measuring it. Yep. Then always doing it that way is exactly what you want to do.
You will always have
usually not how people
foundational piece, the what I call the core values and mission that is your compass for the organization.
Yeah.
But now it's all of the strategies that evolve. That we've always done it this way. I was working with a client and I was trying to get them to see the value of social media.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't do that. We just don't. But that's where your people are,
Right. Well, that's something else I like to talk about with folks is that, especially in marketing and in fundraising, which is I consider kind of a branch in some respects of marketing.
I call them peanut butter and jelly. If you don't have one, you can't have the other. And
exactly. Right. And you got to always look at things from the donors, the market's point of view. I teach a grant writing class, and I am all about you gotta look at what you're putting out from the funder's point of view.
What's in it for them, the with them.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, and they have a boss, right? And they want to be successful,
Yeah.
and they want to do the things that are.
Yeah, I do that whole super donor framework is that same thing. It's not about how much they give, it's how much they appreciate and are engaged. So it's building engagement, not building money. The money will come if they're engaged.
Yeah, no, that's lost a lot in the turn and burn kind of atmosphere that unfortunately either people feel they have to do or that's the way to do it.
Well, even the continuum that has been around for years, which is that pyramid where it has first-time donor, sustaining donor, and it goes up to legacy donors. Those are all money values. They're all based on the money.
And it's interesting. I've never tested this out, but my theory is that pyramid is actually split vertically, and that the people who are direct mail donors and email donors and the folks we consider they're low-level donors, right? Well, the top of that pyramid is a planned gift. And the other side, the folks who are events and kind of into the maybe transactional fundraising like earned income, selling stuff and all that, the top of that pyramid is major gifts and individual gifts.
I call those the super donors, the top of the pyramid.
Well, yeah, but
I
it could
tag
be
them
though
super donors, and it's a level of their loyalty, advocacy, engagement, and it goes across fundraising, whether or not they show up at events and are your spokesperson without being asked.
But a lot of times those people aren't the ones that are going to leave the gift in the will.
No,
those are going to be the other folks.
But I feel the $25 giver sometimes even isn't given enough credit for what they do.
Well, yeah, there's that. But if you do treat them nicely, you get a bigger payoff.
Yeah.
Well, so
let's get back to professional development.
Right, exactly. The other thing that I don't know if people have ever read, again, another book, Drive, I forget what the subtitle is, by a fellow named Daniel Pink. And it's basically talking about motivation in the workplace. And he talks about three things: autonomy, mastery, purpose. And autonomy is something that you almost have to have in a nonprofit, right? There just aren't there aren't enough people around to micromanage. If somebody's micromanaging you or you're micromanaging somebody else, there's something. Not only is there something fundamentally wrong, right? But maybe the right person is in place. But autonomy is something nonprofits can do because of a resource issue. Purpose, nonprofits own. I mean, if there's anything out there, right?
Purpose-driven business. It's a for-purpose business.
Exactly. So what's that leave us? That leaves us mastery. And mastery can be really motivating for people because it's learning. It's growing on the job. It's finding new and different ways of being, making something happen, being innovative. And it's that it's the mastery part that really I try to focus for people and help folks along with. And it's funny because in the beginning of my career, I worked for an organization. If you really want to see guess who it is, you can look at my LinkedIn profile. I'm not going to tell you. They were all about mastery within their own orbit, but they were very cautious about letting people go outside their orbit because they were afraid that if this person goes to a conference outside, right, they're going to leave. You're always afraid of somebody, jumping ship. The problem with that feeling is that these folks are actually, they feel a greater loyalty to you if they are seeing opportunities to grow from your organization, that you're helping facilitate.
I did a blog about, provide opportunities to develop leaders.
Yeah, well, right. Or even just, not even going up, but even going sideways and drilling down.
Leadership can mean many things where you
exactly.
your self-motivation, and things like that. But people feel better.
And one of the other points that that Pink makes, and also a fellow named Kasser in a book called The High Price of Materialism. Weird how their graphs are almost the same. And I asked Pink, I actually sent him a note, and he said, "Well, I didn't hear about this other one," which is that it actually saves you money to have motivated people who are engaged in getting better at what they do, because you got to pay folks what is a reasonable wage for where you live, and so that they feel like they're not getting poor by working for you, right? But once you got that done, money kind of comes off the table a bit. And we live with this mythology that, well, to get a better person, I got to pay higher wages, or I have to do, and we really discount the value of meaningful work. Yep. And being able to give a workplace environment that folks feel like they're really contributing.
Absolutely. They have to be a part of that cog, the chain.
Exactly.
They have to feel as if what they do is just as important to the big system.
Yep.
And if their part lacks or they don't do their part, not that they sort of have let the organization down, and it becomes a personal goal, maybe.
Well, and interesting you say about the big thing, but it's also a microcosm, you might say, that if you're not living the values, or I should say, if the organization is not living the values it espouses,
yeah,
people pick that up real quick. And I've worked for a couple of organizations like that, who, they say, well, I am this or whatever, or we promote this, and yet the people inside are not being treated in that manner, yep, or are suffering the effects of not having that aspect of their life addressed. And like, say, well, we're all for families. Well, then why did all these people who work for you have family crises because they're working too much for you?
Yeah, yeah.
We're, whatever it is, right? It's and that again comes back to organizational self-awareness, and getting the education you need in professional development, so that you can see this and work through the process.
Absolutely.
A problem like that.
Okay, you have one last question here, or statement. Which resources can make a small investment reap major benefits for your nonprofit and or clients?
Yeah, I mean, okay, so at the risk of a little bit of self-promotion here, I will tell you that's what Nonprofit.Courses does, but it's not the only place. But the point is that you can get a lot of stuff now that's not going to cost you a lot in terms of education.
Yes.
And it's really tremendous what's available out there in our internet world, right? Webinars and podcasts, but don't discount books.
Podcasts.
Yeah, right, exactly. Right, here we are. But don't discount, like picking up a book on Amazon from the used booksellers.
Absolutely.
I mean, a good chunk of these things behind me, and these are real books, right? Are from those. Teaching is, you can get paid to learn.
Absolutely.
Because when you start teaching, people are, they want folks who can do this, and you would be amazed at how I'm always amazed. Maybe it's just me, how much you learn when you teach. When I teach, because I have to be as good, if not better, than some people there, and I have to know it and come off.
And you have to be prepared for questions. And one thing that has really helped me in my entire teaching/training career, if I'm asked a question that I don't have the answer to at that moment, by the next time I see them, I know the answer, because
so when I
research.
One of the first things we learned in Boy Scout training for professional scouters was that they did this game, and you actually had 3 points. If you knew it, you got a point. If you didn't know it and said, I don't know, let me find out, you got a 0. And if you said it wrong or tried to dance around it, you got minus points.
Whoa, okay.
But it really makes a difference that you admit that, gee, I don't know that, but I'm going to find out, and that's a part of your own growth.
Yes. It has been a pleasure. Would you believe it? We've been on here for 40 minutes already.
Wow. Okay. Well, let me. One of the things that
Go
I
ahead.
got that little gift for the folks here, right? Got a giveaway thing, a template, professional development template to check out.
Absolutely. And I will put that link in the podcast notes. I'll put
Yep.
the link to Nonprofit Courses. I'm going to put, you mentioned 2 books. I'm going to put links in.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I have eMyth. It's one of the books in my arsenal.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, so I was familiar with that one.
And
But
that's something that I think that nonprofits. I mean, I wish there was an eMyth edition for nonprofits. Maybe that's something you and I can work on.
we need to write that. See, I'm always looking to write books, you know.
There you go.
So, do you have any last tips, or if you want people to reach out to you, any last?
Yeah,
Things?
best way is go to the contact page on Nonprofit.Courses, or LinkedIn is great too. And just look for that piece I gave you. I also have something I call Record Your Success. It's linked in there in that template at the bottom that you can click on and go to. That it gives you a little more sophisticated way of tracking your professional development. As opposed to the sheet's good. I want to make sure you're getting something good, but if you want to really up it, you got
Take it to the next level. Yep.
Yep.
Absolutely. This has been my pleasure.
Oh, I enjoyed it.
Matt Hugg. He's the founder of Nonprofit Courses. And this has been another edition of the Nonprofit Corner podcast with your host, Dr. Victoria Boyd. And we will see you next time.